Hi, my name is Talia. Welcome to Talia Nerds Out. Welcome to part 2 of my July 2024 book haul video. So I keep having to fix my glasses. I have new frames coming in. These are, and have been for a while, a bit too wide. And so I have to have these to keep them on my face, and they keep sliding down and driving me absolutely insane. But I have them making a couple of slightly tinted pair of light sensitivity frames or light sensitivity lenses for better fitting pair of frames, and then I have them making some much stronger migraine level protection lenses for my other pair of better fitting frames. But it'll be at least a couple more weeks until my new frames arrive. Maybe little bit more than that. So until that point, I am going to be constantly adjusting these. But I'm so close. So yeah, on to my second book haul video for July. And I actually meant to cover this in the last video, but I forgot. This is a book set that I picked up completely. This is how I learned that I cannot read my biography dictionary, or dictionary of biographies, I think is what it's actually called, put out by Merriam. Actually, I'm not sure if it's put out by Merriam-Webster or Oxford now that I think about it. Anyway, whoever puts it out, it's just a dictionary full of like brief little biographies. And I was just flipping through. It's a little pocket one. I think I showed it on my book haul video for dictionaries. Or for reference books, rather. And when I was looking through, this particular person caught my eye. His name is George Washington Creel. He was a World War I doctor who was, from what I understand, very had a lot of influence at the time. He was involved. He did treatment on the battlefield. Wrote quite a few important papers, that kind of thing. And I don't remember everything that I read in his little biography, but it interested me. And I found for a steal his autobiography, volume 1 and 2, in this box set, first edition, on eBay. And I mean, I had to tape the box because it was a little bit beaten up. But other than that, I mean, there's a little bit of water damage to the what do they call these? Dust jackets. But the actual book itself, it is in amazing shape. So this one's volume 2 actually. Let's bring volume 1. It's edited with sidelights, which I'm not sure what that means, by his wife, Grace Creel. And it says that he came from an Ohio farm family, one of 8 children. He worked his way to the top of his chosen profession by force of his intelligence, imagination, and energy. This non-technical account of his eventful career, idyllic family life, and dramatic activities in the field of experimental medicine comes directly from the autobiographical jottings of Dr. Creel's lifetime, covering case histories, which is so cool, adventures in research, amusing incidents, warm human associations, and philosophic musings, as edited and explained by Grace Creel, who was her husband's companion, secretary, business partner, and greatest comfort throughout his life. Thus, the material of this book, one of the most distinguished accounts of a medical man ever written for the general reader, comes as a collection of discerning, on-the-scene reflections with the urgency and drama of the moment always showing through, revealing the personal story of a great man who treated triumph and disaster just the same. George Creel's life spanned a period of sensational change in the science and practice of medicine, a period in which he himself helped to push back the frontiers invented many of the tools and procedures used by modern medicine, and contributed directly to the saving of countless lives in both the Spanish-American War and World War I. Specifically, Dr. Creel performed the first successful amputation under local anesthetic in 1897, later perfecting the nitrous oxide method of general anesthesia. And then it continues to go onward from there because there's a lot here. But yes, this should be an amazing read. Like I said, this is in great shape. The dust jacket's a little bit beaten up, as is the box, but this is a first edition. It's an amazing shape. I mean, it's hard to believe that this is a first edition. This must not have been ever read. This one's volume 1. It has an amazing old book smell. And yeah, it says copyright 1936, first edition. And it's the same thing for the other ones. They were a 2-part, I think. And if you follow the page numbers, and I love it when books that are 2-parters do this. So this first part ends on page 306. When you open volume 2, it starts on page 307, which is awesome because it really reminds you that, hey, this is really one book. It was just easier to put into 2 volumes. So if I really wanted to, I could read this next year for the Big Book Summer book challenge, because it has well over 600 pages. So yes, this was an amazing find. Like I said, I got it for a steal on eBay, and I'm so glad that I found him through the dictionary biography. Even if I don't go and randomly search out anyone else, I am glad that I found him. So, yes. The next one that I want to show, just want to make sure that I don't have any specific order. Let's do this one next. So I have 2 Star Trek books that I decided I wanted in physical form. And it's my favorite of the original series, which I showed last time in Ishmael, which was like I said, original series 1 focused on Spock. And then my favorite Next Generation one, although I have a couple Next Generation ones that I like, just like I have a couple of original series ones that I like. But this one has always been my favorite of the Next Generation ones. And it's Tooth and Claw. This one has always stuck in my head. And I do look forward to rereading it. I actually have some time before the end of the summer, so maybe I will get it done really quickly for my second read for Book Trek. But yeah, I've always enjoyed this one. It's actually interesting because it is very much will focused, and I would have thought that a favorite book of mine would have been maybe Worf focused, because I have more of a preference for stories that center around characters like Worf or like Spock, versus Will isn't generally one that I'd be like, oh yeah, I want to read a Will story. So yeah, but this is my favorite of the Next Generation ones that I've read. Going on from that point, when I was consoling myself with the frustration that I felt from having to DNF in The Pride of a Moment, which was about the writing and in Jane Austen's writing of character, and how focusing on the interactions of a moment and how Austen used them in her character development, and how foreshadowing was used, those kind of things. I had to DNF that book because of the way that it was written was very pretentiously, and while I was able to pull some thoughts out of it that were useful, for the most part it was just an incredibly frustrating read that didn't have to be. So I ended up picking up this one. This I actually found at it's a website that just sells Jane Austen books, and I don't think I have the name of the website on here. Although I might have it, I think I might have it pulled up in my browser still. It's called, let's see, Jane Austen Books, I think it says .net. My, JaneAustenBooks.net. So, I found quite a few interesting books there. Some of them are other editions of Austen's main novels, but some of them are books about either the world of Jane Austen or about Austen's writing process. And this one's called Jane Austen, The Creation of Modern Fiction, 6 novels in a style entirely new. This book explores Jane Austen's development as a writer, what she adapted from tradition for her needs, what she learned novel to novel, how she used that learning in future works, and how her ultimate mastery of fiction changed the course of English literature. This evaluation of Austen's creative process brings into focus the strengths and weaknesses of her 6 novels. Each is examined in its use of major fictional techniques: description, scene building, points of view, and psychological development to reveal unique literary attributes. The result is a revealing analysis of how world-class fiction is built from the ground up. So I think this is going to be a very interesting book. As I mentioned in the book where I mentioned I was going to DNF the other book. I mentioned that I enjoy books about writing, both because of the psychological aspect and just because I enjoy books about, writing things like character. So this will be a very enjoyable read, I believe. Not likely something I'll be able to get in for Jane Austen July because we're almost done and I'm still finishing up the 2 books I'm currently reading, but I look forward to reading this probably next year for Jane Austen July. Excuse me. Then, following that same theme, I saw this on someone else's video about what they were hoping to read for Jane Austen July, but they said they didn't think they would get around to reading this. I actually picked this up a little while ago, earlier in the month, but it took a while to come. I think it might have been coming from England, which is why it took so long. This is Jane Austen and the Clergy by Irene Collins. And as most people probably are aware, Jane Austen was the daughter of a clergyman. She had at least one brother who was a clergyman, and then she had a couple of brothers who were in the Navy. I think one was a banker as well. So this, I'm guessing, is just talking about her. I'm guessing it talks about her personal relationship with the clergy, and then how it shows in her writing, and that's what I'm guessing anyway. It doesn't really tell me, but that just was a concept, an idea that interested me. Oh, hang on, I'm trying to get to the table of contents. So yeah, here we go. Jane Austen's clerical connections, patronage, the parson's education, the parson's income, the parson's dwelling, the country parish, the clergy in the neighborhood, the parson's wife, manners and morals, morals and society, worship and belief. So this will help not only understanding Austen better, but understanding several of her, clerical characters better, or rather, characters who are clerics, clergymen. So people like Mr. Collins, but also on the other hand, you have Edward Ferrars, or you also have, Edmund Bertram, and then you also have Henry Tilney. So you have characters who are clergymen scattered throughout Austen's books. So it'll give a deeper insight into those characters, both those who are laudable and then also those who are either not so much or just the completely human aspects of ones who are really neither, heroic or non-heroic. They're just normal. So yeah, that looks like that'll be an interesting read. I'm not sure which Jane Austen July that'll be read. This one, I don't think I have to read just during Jane Austen July, although I might still have to wait until quarter three of next year or beyond, because I don't think I'd have to get quite a bit of reading done to be able to get this in this year. So this is something else I picked up from JaneAustenBooks.net, or rather, I saw it on JaneAustenBooks.net and I found it used on Amazon, I believe. When the Dead Rose in Britain: Premature Burial and the Misdiagnosis of Death During the Enlightenment, by Nicole C. Salamoni. And this falls right in line with the book that I was reading about vampires, the history or the historical idea of vampires and the literature, myth, etc. of vampires. That book I already have started. This kind of has that same feel, although I think of things like Poe's short story, Buried Alive, and then the idea of the resurrection men and all that other kind of stuff. Bring the fears and dark realities of premature burial to life in a rich, or brings, this is someone who is, this person looks like they wrote a book called Burials and Beyond, and this is their review of this book. Brings the fears and dark realities of premature burial to life in a rich and engrossing narrative. Salamoni's understanding and transference of medical knowledge and theories is excellent. And in the back, the description of the book itself says, through a detailed and fascinating exploration of changing medical knowledge and practice, this book provides a timeline of humankind's understanding of physiological death. Anchored in early modern Britain, it explains how evolving medical theories challenge the ambiguous definition of death, instigating anxieties over the newly realized potential for officials to mistake a person's time of death. Fears of premature burials were materialized as newspapers across Europe printed hundreds of articles about people who had been misdiagnosed as dead and were then buried, or nearly buried, alive. These stories, tallied in this text, present the first contemporary statistic of how frequently misdiagnosed death led to premature burial during the 18th century. This book also explores the folkloric phenomenon of the rising dead and stories that inspired a number of authors, including Coleridge, Byron, and Stoker, who blended medical understanding with fiction to create vampire literature. Didn't I just say, and I hadn't read this section before I said it, didn't I just mention the book that I was reading about vampirism? So, instinct's right. This is right up my alley. Medical history, history of the way that people deal with death, all that other kind of stuff, which makes me sound really morbid, but I'm not. This is just, along with art history, religious history, all those kind of things fall in my area of interest. Then, next I have, the rest of these kind of go together, and not everything in this set has arrived. I'm waiting for one of the other ones to arrive. So this is an annotated set of Austen's 6 great novels. And I wasn't going to pick up an annotated set. I ended up finding them used for the most part to get the best price. But what I like about this is you have on, so what it'll say is, let me see, this is the one for Northanger Abbey, which is the first one, of course. And this will take the complete text of the novel with more than, in this case of this book, 1,200 annotations on facing pages, including explanations of historical context, creation from Austen's life, letters, and other writings. Or sorry, citations, not creations. Citations from Austen's life, letters, and other writings. Definitions and clarifications. Literary comments and analysis. Maps of places in the novel. An introduction, bibliography, and detailed chronology of events. And 225 informative illustrations. Filled with fascinating details about the characters' clothing, furniture, carriages, and illuminating background information on everything from the vogue for all things medieval to the opportunities for socializing in the popular resort town of Bath. So it brings Austen's world into richer focus. So I will give an example. So here you have, this is the actual part of the story. And then on the opposite page here, you have a painting, and it has a definition of what sprayed muslin is, and what Mrs. Allen's answer reveals about her in this section. And yeah, so just those kind of things. To take another section here, you will have, here's some painted chairs of the period on the opposite page. And I guess that maybe because I think in this section, Catherine might mention that there's a painted chair in one of the rooms. So yes, this is one of those, like, I would not read this version of Northanger Abbey all the time. This would be one of those ones that'd be fun to read and reread, you know, every once in a while. But this isn't one that I would consistently, this wouldn't be my go-to reading version of Northanger Abbey, because you don't always want to have to read double the pages to get through the story. Sometimes you just want to read the story. But if I want to have the fun of the annotation, it's really nice. I mean, it's got some lovely pictures in here. And it's always nice to have context that we just don't have completely in the modern day. So this is the one for Northanger Abbey. I then have the one for Sense and Sensibility, which is a bit bigger. It has 2,000 annotations versus the 1,200 ones. And it's got the same idea. So here is a gig. So I believe this is right after we meet Edward. No, Edward's been here a while. Gig must have been mentioned at some point. I just can't. 25. Yeah, I'm not quite sure why they have a picture of a gig there. I'm sure there's a reason in this particular page opposite why. But you continue to have things like definitions opposite or commentary. Here's a picture of a London print shop. I think it's in reference to Edward talking to Mariana about some of the prints and stuff that she likes. Yeah, so this is the book that I probably will read next after I finish Mansfield Park. So I might just actually start with this annotated version instead of jumping into Northanger Abbey, which I was going to originally do before I found the annotated versions of these books. Since I have this selection now, I'll go back to reading this in order, but read the annotated versions, which will give me a whole new reading experience. But I won't start with Northanger Abbey again. I want to read it 2 times in a row. Then next, I have here Pride and Prejudice. It does not tell me the number. It just says thousands of annotations. Doesn't tell me how many thousands. And it continues to follow the theme of having pictures opposites. So here it has a picture of watering a road, which was done to counteract the extreme dustiness of roads in the summer. So there's that. It has again, some more definitions and context separate, opposite of the text. I look forward to seeing why certain pictures are chosen to be opposite, if they are always related to the text on the page opposite, or if they're shoving in interesting, facts and such opposite when they don't have anything to say about the facing page, if they just want to, get as much context in there as possible. And these are all by the same author, all the annotations. Then here's the one for Mansfield Park. Ouch, sorry. My knee didn't like that movement. This one, I think, is probably the thickest. I don't know, it comes pretty close to Sense and Sensibility, but I think this might be the thickest. It's 2,300 annotations, so it is a little bit thicker than Sense and Sensibility. Which makes sense. This is one of her thicker books. So you have a picture of a man in evening dress. Okay, this is around the time period of that theatrical production. Looks like it's around the time that Mr. Bertram came back home. Here you have the House of Commons. I think because of the fact that Mr. Bertram was oftentimes not at home because of being, at least a certain time of year when the house is in session, he would not be home because of his duties. Then we have, I guess it's actually Lord Bertram, not Mr. Bertram, excuse me. I insulted his rank. Just a bunch of really lovely pictures. Here's a picture of Ramsgate. And then you continue to have definitions and context written in various different pages. This will be a very nice way to read Northanger Abbey. Not Northanger Abbey, Mansfield Park. That's the one I have in my hand. I'm still waiting for Emma to come in, but here's Persuasion. Oh, I obviously got that one used. And that shows an elderly couple arriving in a gig. Okay, the binding's still in decent shape. So yeah, I look forward to reading this version. Again, here's the interior of the pump room from Contemporary Picture. And you hear the pump room mentioned all the time, particularly in Northanger Abbey. They're always mentioning the pump room. Pump room was a large room where the bath waters could be drunk. Its name came from the pumps that raised the water from below. It was a prominent place for people to meet others and converse, as the heroine of Northanger Abbey does on several occasions. Most likely the opportunity observed many people entering and leaving the pump room is what draws Mary to her vantage point. Okay, so yeah, I actually wasn't aware of what the pump room was. As I'm still in Northanger Abbey, or reading Northanger Abbey, that is nice to know. Now, unfortunately for me, I am leaving Bath at this point in Northanger Abbey, so it's not when it would have been most useful. Now, of any of the books I might have to repurchase at some point, I see it being this one because the binding is a little bit more worn. It does look like this one actually got read, so we'll see how well it holds up. Or if I will eventually have to pick up a different version of this because it's really creased here. But there we go. That is the second part of my book haul. I don't know if I'll get a chance to show Emma before the end of the month rolls around. It might be one that I have to show come August because, gosh, are we already looking at August? That's so weird. This year is going by so fast. Anyway, that might have to be one that I show in August because the end of July is coming on so fast. But thank you very much for joining me for this second part of the July book haul. Hope that you have a very wonderful day, and I will see you for the next video. God bless. Bye.